Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Black Advancement Female Voice Zoomcast. First, we're going to start off with our introductions. I'm Shanice.
And I'm Lauren.
Hey, I'm Neka.
And I'm Takara.
All right. It's nice seeing you guys again, ladies. I know it's been a while, but we are going to finally conclude our topic of health with ending in spiritual health. I know we talked about mental health, we talked about physical health, and now we're going to dive into what some would consider the backbone of all health, spiritual health. Black people have relied heavily on spirituality to get us through troublesome times, such as the modern day civil rights movements of the 50s and 60s, the enslavement period in the country and in America, during our civil rights movement. Our leaders were reverends and pastors in churches. So it kind of has been the Black church has been the backbone of our community. Many of our spiritual practices are passed on from generation to generation, from great-grandmas to grandmas to grandfathers, everyone believing and worshiping in the same way. It is noted in a study by Pew Research that 80% of Black women consider themselves highly spiritual. 76% pray daily. 84% believe in a higher power. And according to the American Journal of Public Health, spirituality among African American women have been associated with positive health outcomes as for self-esteem and coping. It is also noted that African Americans who use spiritual coping are most likely to be diagnosed with, least likely to be diagnosed with hypertension because of the stress factor, relying on that higher power. So with that being said, ladies, the first question is, why do you think it is so important? Oh, before I even get to this, I'm going to say a disclaimer. We don't have any spiritual health experts on here. We are all just 4 women who are willing to discuss with you our spiritual journeys. Our goal is not to influence you or discourage you for taking a spiritual journey. Our goal is only to discuss the importance of it in our lives. So we just kind of want to make that disclaimer before we get started. And if you want to go ahead and tell us how your spiritual journey is going or not going, or if you disagree with something you said, feel free to leave it in the comments. We'll be happy to engage with you in conversation. So with that being said, I'm going to get to the first question. All right, here we go. Why is it so important? Why do you believe it's so important to be connected with a spiritual being or God? If anybody wants to take that first question, and I'll repeat it again. Why do you believe it's important to have a spiritual connection with God or your belief system?
I think it's important for people to feel that they have something to believe in, something to look forward to have a positive outlook, maybe when there's times in life when things are difficult, and believing in a higher power, whatever that may be, for that person, I think often can be like motivation to help people to continue to move when things can be, can seem insurmountable. Sometimes you can be in a situation, where things may seem impossible, but having the belief that that you can get through it, that you have support, that you have a purpose in life. Mm-hmm. I think that will oftentimes help people to move forward, even when things can be very difficult.
Yeah, I would agree with that because, life is hard and you need, some way to ground yourself, some beliefs to live by, somewhere to go when times are tough, or even when things are going well, establishing like a spirit of gratefulness. And so I think it's really, really important. I definitely don't think it needs to be, organized religion. In fact, I don't really believe in any organized religion. I think it's more detrimental than anything to people. But spirituality, having your own relationship with what you believe in, God, goddesses, ancestors, spiritual guides, all of those things I think are important.
Mhm. And also, I think that there, there's a health kind of connection as well, right? So if you are a person that feels, really connected, and you have the ability or feeling that you can overcome things, I think that does have a physiological impact on your body. And so as a result, that is going to help you, like as Shanice mentioned, you're going to have less hypertension. You're going to be more inclined to do things that are helpful for you. So regardless of how you kind of identify it, if it's spirituality, if it's, whatever it may be, these things do have a tangible impact in your life. And so that's always, beneficial when we are doing things that, may not be the best for us.
Yeah.
Having that desire to do different or better, I think is always important.
And I would definitely have to agree with all of you. And then seeing that historically, how every single culture has such a connection, belief in the power of a higher being, that shows me that it's kind of like it's in our nature to seek that and to have that comfort of knowing that there's something out there that is bigger and greater than you. And I think not only does it bring comfort to you, it helps you cope with things that may not be within your human spirit to fix. You might say, well, and it helps to build the faith in something that's bigger than you, that can get you through all those outcomes and all those hard tragedies in life. So I think having that connection is another outlet for us to for our mental health, having that, it's another, I'm trying to think of the word for it. You guys can help me out, but it's another kind of like, I want to say bridge or safe way, like where it's like you have that bridge to your mental health. Like, so it's like a bridge of safety and comfort, knowing that everything's not in your hands. You can rely on something higher than you to get you through your problems. So it's important and important to have that connection.
And I think also not even just problems, sometimes just seeking guidance, decision making, just having, if you're confused or not really sure where you're going, or should I do this or that, just asking whoever you believe in above to help guide you in the way that is best, and maybe even asking for them to place signs in your path that you can see.
Right. I definitely agree with that as well. All right. Anybody have anything else to add to this part of the discussion, or do we want to move on to the next question?
No, I mean, I think it's, I would just like to add, like, I think what you said too, like you say about like our ancestors, I think when you talked about like our ancestors going through like really tough times, especially when you think about slavery and like, civil rights era segregation, I think that people had faith that things would be better. And I think that that was certainly something that helped people to, again, continue to move forward and continue to fight, even when things again seemed like they were insurmountable. We were in a very we were under a oppression, but to be able to continue to move forward and continue to fight for something that just seemed like it was really not within reach. People really had hope and faith and belief that things could get better. And I think that that pulled a lot of people through. I mean, when you think about history of like Negro spirituals and things like that, people often use song, and just being connected to each other and just having that belief, that faith, that, blind faith that things would improve. I think it really helped people to, have the strength to, to be able to say we can overcome this in some form or fashion, however it will be, oftentimes, like you say, in that time, it was like, much more about like, like you said, like God's will, that things would improve. So, I mean, no, I agree. And I'm just saying it to say like that, I agree. I think like those things about like faith and like, having that and having hope in times of despair.
Yeah, and because Black people, we've been a marginalized group for this country for years. So having that hope and belief and something that is hard enough that can bring us through this. Because I still think we're still an oppressed people. In spite of the efforts of the civil rights movement, we're still fighting our own civil rights movement today. So having the idea that we will eventually reach that promised land that Martin Luther King so hardly that he highly spoke of. I definitely believe that it is essential for Black people to just have that hope, and spirituality provides it. And so I see your point there.
Faith, I just, I understand what you guys are saying. I do believe some of that, but I do also think that sometimes that blind faith can be very, very tricky.
Right.
It's a double-edged sword. And I think sometimes having hope and faith without doing much can encourage people to be docile and complacent and accepting of things that are unacceptable, and just continuing to wait and hope and have faith that something else is going to take care of what we need to be taking action for ourselves. So I think sometimes it's good, but sometimes it can also be tricky. And just to give a personal story, give a personal story about that. I was just going to give a personal story about that. My cousin, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she got very enmeshed into a certain religious sect of Christianity. And she started her chemotherapy. She did that. And as she got deeper and deeper into this church, they kind of discouraged her from continuing with radiation and surgery, which was needed to complete her complete therapy. And it became, we're going to pray this cancer away. You don't need to do all of those things to your body. And she got deeper and deeper into it, and she didn't complete that. She only did the chemotherapy. And unfortunately, a few years later, cancer came back and she died from that. And so for me, I feel like sometimes that faith is not always the best thing.
Right. No, and I agree with you, Neka, but I think, like you say, that's where we get into the issues with organized religion.
Right.
Which is a separate issue. Like you say, like a lot of people will also make that designation between, I have a spiritual connection with God versus, like you say, being attached to a particular church denomination. Like you say, that organized religion can sometimes really skew things because the Bible also says faith without works is dead, honey. And if the Lord gave you tools, like you say, to save you from cancer, to protect you from COVID, to make sure you get your master's degree, you can't just be thinking you're gonna pray and a job and a master's degree and cure's just gonna show up on your doorstep. That's not how this works. So no, I agree with you. I agree with you. But we organized religion is a whole nother ball game.
And then believe it. And even if you have organized religion, you also have to understand that God gifted people with brains that can come up with cures for things, and that can help you with your cancer, that can help you with your mental health disorders. Like, you have to understand that it's a network. It's just not your faith. You have to also believe that and trust in the people he puts in your life to help you with those diseases and those disorders. There's people that can walk around with blind faith. However, you have to look at the bigger picture. There's a reason why you were put in that doctor's office. There's a reason why that doctor is treating you. There's a reason why he's saying you need this and he's saying you need that. You have to trust in that, and don't just listen to certain voices, because those certain voices could be hindering you from the true voice of God, which is telling you to go seek that cancer treatment. And he's putting those people in your life for that reason. So I definitely agree with you guys. Definitely understand what you're saying, and how that churches can influence and distress in the medical field. However, people need to wake up and see, hey, God put those people here. He gifted them with abilities to heal, to cure, to do all those things that he physically isn't doing right now for you. Doesn't mean he can't do it. It just means that it's not right now for you. So you need to trust him to what he's putting in place for you.
If he gave you tools, use them.
Yes, exactly, Sakara. Exactly, 100%.
Yeah, the way I always think of it, I mean, I wasn't raised in the church. My father was raised as a Muslim, my mother was raised as a Christian. So I never was like raised with organized religion, but we often grew up with a lot of I guess morals and values that kind of were in adherence with Christianity, I would imagine, or pretty much with a lot of religions. And so the way that I always think about it is that every person has the ability to, kind of go whatever path that they want to go down. And inside of that, we also have to respect that sometimes people do choose to go down a path that we may feel is a little off the beaten path, or
Right.
probably not a direction that we would go. But in accepting the religions or the choices of other people, even though we might not think they're the right thing, we have to also accept that they may think that they're the right thing for them.
Right.
So it's kind of like, being in America, there are people that we think of like, well, why do you think that? But it's America, and people are entitled to feel the way that they feel as well. So, it's always a journey. Everybody has their thing that they wrestle with and that they come to a conclusion. Sometimes it's based on facts, sometimes it's not. But I think it's just something we're all kind of dealing with all the time. So, yeah, it's difficult.
It is. It definitely is. So, ladies, just to go to the next question, what recommendations do you have for busy people that may be neglecting their spiritual health, saying they're too busy to make the connection to their higher power. They're too busy to do anything. Do you guys have any advice? Do you have any recommendations for those people that are going through that?
I think that it doesn't have to be, super organized and regimented. And I feel like sometimes people feel overwhelmed by having to do things the correct way, the way, so-and-so said you should do it.
Mhm.
So just finding any little time. Some people aren't very organized. I'm one of them. And you can't say, every morning I'm going to wake up with a prayer. Every night I'm going to close with a prayer. Sometimes you just have to do it when you feel it. Maybe you're on your bus ride, or wherever, if you want to journal and talk about what you're grateful for, the things that you're happy for in life,
Mhm.
can help really uplift your mood and your spirit. Things like short prayer, things like manifestation, calling things into your life, speaking to your ancestors. All of those things don't have to take a long time. They can be very, very brief minutes. So even if you're very, very busy, you can, everybody has a few minutes to do something, even just before you get out of bed in the morning. If you're a morning person like me, I know sometimes getting out of bed can be rough, but if you have like a minute or two in the morning, just to think about something you were grateful for, that happened the day before, or something that you're thankful for, can start your day off really, really nicely. Something that I did last year was a vision board. And I did it early 20, oh, it wasn't even last year, early 2020. I did a vision board, and I put down all of these things that I was trying to manifest and call into my life. And I prayed, I spoke to my ancestors, I spoke to spirit guides, gods, goddesses, all of them, like, help me achieve these things. And I didn't achieve everything, but looking back when I reviewed the board earlier this year, I saw that I did have a few of those things come and happen, and I didn't even really realize it until I reviewed it in my attempt to prepare to make a new one. But it was nice. I put on there that I wanted to lose 25 pounds, and I lost 25 pounds. I had to look at my little app, and I was like, wait a minute, it was exactly 25 pounds on the day that I reviewed it. I was like,
Congratulations.
look at here. So just things like that.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Any new
I just think that
recommendations?
if you want something, you'll make time for it, And I like the idea of, like, it has to be individualized for you. It's not for, like you said, like what may work for, me may not work for you, and your spouse and your children, or, so on and so forth. You have to kind of, like you say, like, do what works for you. I am somebody who tends to sometimes like fit things in when I'm doing other things. Like how when you mentioned like being on the bus, like when I was taking the train, there were things that I would do on the train because that was kind of, a few minutes where I was not, engaging in anything else. And I had, some moments to get some things taken care of. So that would be a time where I would read or, whatever the case may be, but just carving out time for the things that you want. You will figure it out if that's, really something that you want. But there are people who need to be more regimented. And sometimes they might have to say like, okay, like you say, when I wake up in the morning, so it could be things like, having your mantra next to your bed, having your Bible next to your bed, having your, journal, going online and finding YouTube videos or, somebody on IG whose spiritual page that you like, whatever the case may be. Just what helps you to engage, just figuring out, trying different things until you find a system that works for you.
Right. And I agree with those things too. I definitely, I can relate to being the busyness of life because I am a mother of three. I'm a teacher. I'm a student right now. So it's a lot that I got going on. But I try to take time, like maybe like 5 to 10 minutes a day, open up my day in prayer. Make sure I am seeking God, my higher power throughout the day, and then just trying to maintain that connection because I don't want to have a moment where when I'm void of that because then it gets kind of like, oh, now what do I do? So I just kind of try to keep stay in the walk and stay in the word like as much as I can with the little time that I have, either rather it's 5 to 10 minutes or just like saying little prayers throughout the day. That doesn't take much, to do. All right. So that's what I kind of do. I just kind of maintain that openness throughout my day.
Yeah, and we have to, and maybe what scripture says, but I also think that you do what's going to work for you, right? So you might be a person that this might not be your God time of your life. You may not be into praying or spiritual health, or that might not be the season that you have for your life. And then there will come a time where you will seek it and you will want to educate yourself and call out, and all that stuff kind of happens for everyone. Well, for many people over a period of time, and you'll kind of decide like, you know what, I need to start going to church, or I need to start, making vision boards or whatever it is. Things will either be working or not working. And each person is kind of different for that. So I wouldn't say, necessarily like we all need to, yes, it is good to have a spiritual connection, but it also is something that the person needs to decide for themselves that what they're doing is not working. And that's, I think that's important as well. And
it comes in times, like you said, there'll be times where you feel like you're strongly spiritually connected, and there's some times when you don't, and it comes in spats. And so I guess just like anything, we've been talking about consistency, like with exercise and diet, and then consistency with spirituality. I guess it will come as time comes, as time goes on for some people. And some people it's just like they're good at exercises, they're good at eating right, then they can just, stay committed at all times. So it really depends on the person, the personality, and all of those wonderful things.
Right. I agree with Lauren too, though, the idea of like that, believing is something, even people who, are agnostic or, are atheists. They still have some belief or connection with something that's more important than them, something that's bigger than them, whether it's, your parents or your children. People have animals that they are very, like that can often be their motivation. I think sometimes you need motivations, whatever they are outside of yourself. To kind of help you to keep going, because people struggle when you feel like you don't have a purpose. And like you say, like your mind, body, and spirit, like all of that together, if you don't have a purpose and motivation to continue, your life. And for some people, it is just you. I think, for some people, it's like, listen, all I'm worried about is me. Some people are like that. And like you said, I agree with you, like what is really is about like what works for you. But I think that is a smaller number of people. For most people, they are looking for something else. People have have the desire to be needed, you know, and that those are like you just have to have a purpose that will get you to, you know, that you get up every day for.
Yeah, if I could just give an example of that, like, so for example, like I said, I didn't grow up going to church, right? So when I got to be an older person, I didn't have that desire to go to church, because that was not something that I was developed in or grew up like that's a comfortable place to go, or that I was familiar going to, right? So sometimes we go back to the things that we were familiar to us. That is not something that I would go back to. But yes, I do pray, I do, you know, all of those things, but I don't have those same feelings about the need to go to church. And so that, I guess, is also kind of my point, is that yes, I will seek out a spiritual connection, and sometimes that does involve going to church, but it's not the building necessarily that I would get that connection with.
Yeah, and see, that's my issue, like, you know, with some organized religions, specifically, and I'm somebody who has gone to church at times in my life, but I also don't think that I need to go, like with Catholicism, I don't think I need to go through the priest to get to the Lord. I got my own relationship with him. I don't believe that that's how it works, you know. And I think that, you know, if I'm in the church or not, God is still with me. That's what I believe. You know, and I it's nice to hear that, you know, like that, you know, like how NECA and Lauren are both saying how, you know, organized religion may not be my thing, even though, you know, I believe it's something, you know, but it's not, I agree. I don't think it's attached to like a building and how somebody else may tell you how it's supposed to go. I mean, I think there's a place for it, but I think it's important that you do have a mind of your own, because some of those messages can be, you know, skewed to some extent with you know, organized religion.
And that's why I think it's important to kind of know whatever book you subscribe to, that you read it, because it's a lot easier for you to have the word of someone else confused and you receive it confused. So you have to really seek out the information for yourself. And of course you can, you know, get advice on it, but you should also, you know, develop some sort of practice for yourself or whatever it is.
I agree.
I agree with that too. All right. So we talked a little bit about organized religion in the church. So like, if you can think of, like, for those people that are, because we read the statistic, like a lot of especially Black women are they're probably one of the most highest population in the church. Because I definitely can give that to especially African American ancestors, how most people were raised in the church, and few choose to go away from it as they get older. So with that said, how can organizations like the church and other organizations support the spiritual health, mental health, and physical health so that we can be healthy as a community? So does anybody want to take that?
It's loaded.
Yeah.
For this group too, you know. Because I think Lauren I think she gave a good example, which we don't really hear much about. People of two separate religions and belief systems came together and it still worked. You know, people don't always have to think alike, but if you just have that commonality of just being good to one another, which is really the basis of all religions, is about having a one another mindset, loving each other. If we could focus more on that versus all of these other messages that can be very, Nick is going to agree with me on this one, very like female, submission, follow the man. Thank you. You know, it's very, you know, that so sometimes, like you say, this, you can interpret things in a lot of different ways. I really liked, like the past, I went to a non-denominational church at one point, and I just always had a mind of my own, but that was also because I was raised where my mother kind of jumped around with religions. So it's kind of like how Laura had two parents with two different religions, and that was okay too. Like things don't have to be so like rigid and inflexible all the time. Like if it's, whatever it is that you believe in, like you say, God, Buddha, like you say, the ancestors, it's supposed to be an unconditional love is what we're talking about, unconditional love and support. So even when you do things wrong, it's about accepting, acknowledging, and helping people get back on the right path. It's not always about being so punitive about everything all the time. I think that's a big issue with religion, is that things can just be too punitive, too rigid, and that can be off-putting, but most people will think, don't exactly have the idea to say like, okay, well, I think differently, so I'm gonna, do things differently, or I'm gonna go to church and take away what I take away from it. Or like Lauren was saying, when I read the Bible, this is what I take away from the Bible, versus always going with what somebody else tells you. Oftentimes people are gonna go along with the masses.
Mhm. Anybody else want to answer that one?
Well, I think these organized religions are very misogynistic. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you are Christian, if you're practicing Judaism, if it's Islam, if it's Buddhism, they don't miss the opportunity. All of them somehow don't miss the opportunity to oppress women. So it's hard for me to speak to what they can be doing to help us, because I think they are extremely harmful to women, their psyche, their self-confidence, and their ability to take their rightful place in society. So I guess what they can do is take all that misogyny out, stop making it so only males are the leaders, stop sexual shaming, stop blaming women for men's flaws and faults. And I think one thing, both for men and women, I would like to see them do is really encouraging more as far as mental health issues, going to seek professional help like psychologists, psychiatrists, things of that nature, and not only relying on your spiritual leader for that, because I feel like that is a big gap. It's even more than kind of physical help. The mental health is where people aren't, I find the church isn't necessarily as, it's more pray, not as much go and get professional help while you pray too.
Right.
100%, for sure.
For sure.
That church is not, professional treatment.
Mhm.
There are, things are evidence-based when you are talking about, like you say, with medicine. This is the reason why we do research for medicine and mental health, to be able to, actually give people evidence-based treatments to help you to unpack, to help you to, process trauma, to, process feelings, learn coping skills, learn things that are going to work for you. And like you say, I think that, like you say, having a spiritual connection is part of it. But if you rely if you believe that religion, like you say, like God will just fix it. Again, I just believe in, like, I try to remind my patients that, faith without works is dead. I think that you should, whatever it is that you believe in, I think it's great. I think it really does help people, but that's just one part of the puzzle.
Right. And I would have to agree with both of you as far as of starting an allyship with like mental health practitioners, and so that people aren't so, yes, God is capable. This is my personal belief. I believe God is capable of all things. He can do all things. However, he has blessed people with the ability to help healing, and recognizing that mental health is an issue. Depression is an issue. Bipolarism is an issue. Like, all of those things are issues, and they can't just be cured by prayer. You need to actually go out and seek someone that has authority over those things, that have studied those things. Yes, you can pray. Yes, you can have faith, but there's also an avenue. Those people were created for those particular reasons. So I think that if churches or organized religion will start like the allyship, the partnerships with mental health practitioners, I think that will benefit Black people. Also, physical, as we discussed in previous discussions, Black people are the number one most likely to die from hypertension, most likely to die from diabetes, most likely to die for all of these health elements. And I think that since so many people go to the church, if the church can start educating people on health, different health practices. Yeah, we like to eat those Sunday soul food dinners, but maybe not all the things, not all the parts of the pig should be served there. Try to, do some baked things, just all that education I think we are missing in our community. And since the church plays such a major role, maybe not more so for a newer generation, but definitely for the older generation, I think it's imperative that they just start to kind of open their eyes and realize that there are things in the Black community that are basically killing us. And because it's killing us, we need to do something about it. And because you have that power and that you have that voice, you need to be that voice. You need to use that power so that people can benefit from, a healthy life.
Mm-hmm. I want to just make sure that there's always balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is also important that, like, even what you were saying, Shanice, we have to also think about our diet and spirituality and food and just our practices, because like we were talking about with prayer, when you pray, that has a physiological impact on your body and your mind and how you interact into the world. So you can't just do one thing and then not do the other things, because they all go together in balance and harmony. So just the same way, I mean, my background is in counseling, and I do 100%, support going to counseling as well. But, we do have disparities between Black and Brown counselors. We do have disparities between understanding the cultural components of what it means to be Black in America, right? So when you do seek counseling, making sure that people are culturally competent to understand. When you tell me to talk to my mama about the problems that we have, I might not be able to do that because she may not be responsive to the way that works. So sometimes you have to do a balance, because we are at a place now, or kind of a crossover, where we're transitioning from one year or generation of how things were done, and now we're moving into a new space where you have the new generation of people are more open to counseling and Reiki therapy and all these different new things. And that doesn't mean necessarily that the old practices are bad, but we just have to create some balance and really looking into the things that are good about our communities and how we have really worked together. And we do have a history of coming together as a community and supporting each other. We should use the things that are working, and then the things that are not, be open to change and considering that as well. So that's what I would kind of always say, because sometimes you want to go to a therapist, but maybe you don't have the insurance money, or maybe you don't know that it works, or maybe you went before and somebody told you something that you didn't like. So there could be a lot of different reasons why people don't trust therapy. But these are all things that we have to just listen to, and just try all different kinds of options. So I think it's just balance, really.
All right, ladies, is there anything else you want to add to this discussion? Any final remarks?
I like, Shanice, what you were saying about, like, there's often a lot of missed opportunities, with the church. Again, it's like, what I was saying earlier about, like, that, like, just rigidity, like, sometimes you need to seize opportunities to, help people in different ways, because it's really not one size fits all. And I think, if the church, had more options to, like you say, for outreach and to help people, and, just could be a little bit more flexible, they might be able to reach more people in that way. It's difficult to do that if you think, it's just this one message, and either you get it or you're not going to be saved. But I don't think I don't believe that that's how God works.
So let me ask you, if the church feels, if a church, not saying that all churches do, but if one group believes that that's the case, what should they do about that? Because I think sometimes people do believe that that is the way to go, and so their expectation is that we just need to convince more people to believe like how we believe, rather than changing what we believe so that more people come. And I guess maybe that's the tension of it, because it's like each person wants the other person to change to their thing. And I don't have the answer to it. I'm just saying if anybody has kind of
I mean, my thought is just, I think there's a lot of different religions to choose from, or spiritualities, or, however, because that's like kind of what the conversation is about. Like, there's all these different ways to achieve, spirituality. It doesn't always have to be like through organized religion. And they all have like kind of different sets of rules. So I think like it's just about, like you maybe finding your place. Again, like there's, I particularly don't care for the idea of, like if you're a church and you don't want to accept gay people or things, because I'm always kind of a person who believes, how can you help people if the doors of the church are not open? Whatever church, whatever religion, synagogue, whatever it is, if the doors are not open and welcoming, how can you help people? But then the other thing is, maybe that's not the right place for them either. Maybe it's like you say, you need to have your own spiritual connection to do that work at home. Maybe it's better for you to deal with, any emotional problems, trauma in therapy. Maybe it's better for you to, have a partner, your spouse, and you guys work on things together, a family member. It can be your brother. Like sometimes which is something I probably could have said earlier, is like, having a partner sometimes, as you are working on incorporating a new habit, around spirituality might be, something that may help. So, I mean, I agree with you. Like everybody, probably shouldn't have to adjust, and maybe that church is just not the right place. Maybe you just have to find where, it's going to be the right spiritual guidance for you, the right house for you.
Right.
Agree with that. I think that if you are, following a religious entity or institution that is making you feel bad about who you are, the essence of yourself, you need to pull out of there. That is not going to be a positive place of growth for you. So, I personally, I don't understand how LGBTQ community folks are up in the church receiving negative messages about themselves and continue to go to church. And to me, it's just like, what? Why? Like, get out of there. Like, you need to, or find a different church who is more accepting of that, or a different religion, or look at spirituality, whatever you need to do. But I think that if the institution doesn't, like to Lauren's point, they don't have to change their beliefs necessarily if that's where they are. I think it's on the person to remove themselves from that space that isn't working.
And I agree with that. Like, as far as like, I don't think you can change a belief system beliefs. Like if that's, what they believe, then that's what they believe. But you can make choices for yourself, like Becca was saying. And then you can know that the creator or whoever you worship for yourself too. So all of this is very, like, I believe religion and spirituality is very personal. And what we get from it as we continue to grow in it is something about, how we with the work we put in it, so if it's something that we continue to seek, to go for guidance, to go for to go for help, I'm saying just basically it's going to be a personal journey, personalized journey, and it's just going to be, you just have to make your own connection with that personalized, for your personalized journey in order for I think it to be effective for your health. and don't rely on the words of man, because men do have a tendency to change and to make things seem one way when it should be another. So it's all about, like you said before, you got to start seeking and knowing for yourself. Organized religion has its place in society. So I'm definitely not saying I'm against organized religion. I do go to a church and I participate in a church. However, it's a non-denominational church, like Mecca said, and I particularly find great grounds in the beliefs that my church system. You know, it has helped me through a myriad of things. I use the church community for prayer. So if I need help in something, I'll open up myself to the church and say, hey. And then I found effective prayer from the church. But then again, I don't just rely completely on the church. I do seek medical care if I need medical care. I do, if I need mental health practitioner, I'm going to call a mental health practitioner. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I'm healthy, but it is right now, it's my fortress, it's my foundation. It's how I was brought into this world. And I'm going to believe in, the same way. I'm hoping to meet that connection, the one I am connected to when I leave this world. So, so as far as that goes, I don't think you can change the religious system's beliefs. And I don't think as far as you can combat the powerless of women, because women basically run the church now. There are so many women in the church, and their voices need to be heard. As far as LGBTQIA people in the church, they have their space in the church, and they just need to find a safe space, because this world is cruel enough out there, out there, and they need to be in a space where they are feeling love, that I believe the Creator has endowed everybody to it. So, I think we made a mockery of a religion. Some people have made a mockery of religion for personal gain, and it's really about your personal essence and what you see. I'm sorry for being so long.
That was good. It's good to tie it all up.
Well, then let me share my Shanice story. When I met Shanice, like I said, I never went to church at all, really. But when I met Shanice, I was like, you know what? She's a real Christian. So, I think that makes a difference, right? So when you have a inner peace through whatever it is, people can kind of see and tell if you're a real deal, whatever it is. And that's helpful to other people. And that's, that energy is in the world and an atmosphere. So it's important, that we just remain grounded, not just for ourselves, but for the energy that we put into the world and the universe. So.
Oh, that touched me.
And she took me to church.
Yeah. And then to share one thing about too, I know we talked about mental health, this is a personal story. My grandmother was a Christian. My mom and dad, they kind of went to church, but not really. So I didn't grow up in the church. I kind of found God through the idea of mental health. I suffered from depression for a number of years. And the way that I personally got stronger was through my faith in God. It's been 20 years. I went up to the altar one day for prayer over depression, and I haven't been depressed in over 20 years, so having the workings and seeing the way that, your spiritual guidance can work throughout your life. Mm-hmm. It's very helpful, and it's very, very, very important for ensuring my faith. Ensuring that I'm going to make sure my kids know the same God that I know. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, so that's on the personal note. But that's how I came to become a Christian, is because I actually had an experience with God, and I give him all the credit for what he's done in my life. And yeah, so
Oh, this is
Positive.
amazing.
Right. It's a good positive story to hear. That's good.
Mhm.
mhm. So yeah, don't run from it. Don't, do what you got to do. So just because it's important. We've been spiritual people since we got here. There's every single person. Think about the Native Americans, the indigenous, they're not Native Americans, they're indigenous people to this country. Their land was stolen from them. So think about the indigenous people to this country. Think about all of our ancestors, African ancestors. Right? We all seek a spiritual power. Rather, think about the Egyptians. They all seek a spiritual power. Spirituality has been with humankind since humankind has came to be. So rather you call it Jesus, whether you call it Buddha, whether you call it whoever you call him, or it, it's going to continue to be, and then people are continuing to seek, and then one day, at the end of, I believe at the end of it all, everything's going to be revealed to us all. So we get to see who's right, who's wrong, and it's all going to end one day eventually, and all that won't matter at that point.
Right.
All right. Anybody else with closing remarks? Did we hear from everybody?
I think
Note to
we
end on.
ended it on a good story.
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We hope that you have a very, very, very wonderful day. Make sure you get out and try to help somebody today. We'd like to send a shout out to the Black Advancement. Again, we are a part of the Black Advancement. In no way we affiliated with, our views are not going to be subjected to the whole Black Advancement. We just want you to know that they have their own views, and that's the way it goes. So again, this is not a conversion therapy session. It's more not trying to convert anybody. It was more us discussing our personal journeys and spirituality. And we hope that you guys have a good day. Any more shout outs? Are you still doing your waist beads, Netta?
I'm still doing my waist beads. Check me on Waist Watcher Beads on Instagram.
All right. And then, seek Black healthcare providers too. We have Takara, and then Lauren, who also studies psychology, even though she's going to be have her PhD in something else.
All right.
Yeah. So and then congratulations to her coming up. She'll be Dr. Lauren. I'm not gonna say your last name. So congratulations to you coming up. All right.
Still working on it.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Peace and thanks.
All right.
Recording.